Larry is truly one of the brawlers in the game. He's one of those brawlers whose release date is integral to understanding them, and is also just a very interesting topic. So, we'll be starting with that after his basics, talking about why exactly he was so broken, and what the aftermath was. Then, we'll talk more about Larry's design and why he seems to never actually fall off. That is, until you consider the present day, where you rarely see him anymore, which I'll also go over, and finish off with his Hypercharge. If you want a fun place to talk about Brawl Stars or participate in our 1v1 ranked system called Gauntlet, and just general stuff, join our Discord server. Link will be in the description. Also, make sure to subscribe to keep up with the PowerPoint. Finally, if you want to help support the channel, also become a member. Before we get into the Larry apocalypse, let's go over his basics first. Larry has 5600 health, which is pretty high for a thrower, and a pretty long range of 7.33 tiles. His main attack is pretty interesting, with each attack releasing 2 different explosions, with the first one dealing 1400 damage at a range of 1.5 tiles, and the second one happening after 0.6 seconds, also dealing 1400 damage, but at a range of 2.67 tiles. The unload speed is pretty fast, but his reload is pretty slow at 2.2 seconds. Larry Super summons his brother Lori. Lori has 6000 health and has a shotgun where he deals 2 waves, with 1 wave containing 3 plugs and 1 containing 5 plugs, dealing 300 damage in total, and generally does the best at mid-range. He's also interesting in that he has a pretty smart AI for a spawnable, having erratic movement and generally sticking near Larry. With all that in mind, let's travel back in time to January 2024 when Larry was dropped, one of the earliest early access brawlers. And when he was dropped, he was an absolute menace to society. On release, Larry is genuinely a top 5 brawler of all time. That's how broken he was. Any map you would go, you would see his face. And you wouldn't see his face just once. It would honestly be rare to not have a full game of 6 Larrys. Genuinely, it would be more detrimental to not have a full Larry team, because if you had one brawler that wasn't him and faced off against a full Larry team, you would basically be guaranteed to lose. Basically, he was just the King Vaughn of Brawl Stars at that time. With that description, you might be wondering, why exactly was Larry so good? Well, it's simple. He was utterly, diabolically overtuned and designed brokenly at the same time. Before this, throwers were very weak against aggro, and maybe not to the level where they had 0 self-sufficiency, but it certainly wasn't a priority. However, that all changed with the release of Larry. Suddenly, there was a thrower who could defend themselves at a close range, and even be aggro. Larry did solid damage at a close range, but the main problem was the super. His super would deal insane damage at a close range, while also providing a tanking body to body block for Larry. And that's not all. Let's finally talk about some of the ridiculous stats that Larry had. Released Larry had 6800 health. 6800 health is something that would be tanky for an assassin, but a thrower? What was their plan? Furthermore, it literally only took 5 shots to charge a super, which is insane. If that wasn't enough, he had 840 damage per shot at level 1, which for context is 700 currently. But of course, that also wasn't it. He also had an 8 tile range, which made him lethal on long range maps, which I have pretty bad memories on in Bridge Too Far. But wait, there's more. Larry's swap gadget would heal utterly diabolical amounts, being 33% of both Larry and Lori's health. And finally, Larry's protect star power was utterly broken, as Lori would take 100% of the damage if Larry was close to him, which was insane for close range battles. If you couldn't tell by now, Larry was utterly and insanely broken. Not only was his design broken, but every single stat he had was overtuned to the max, leading to an unbeatable brawler. So, of course, he needed to get nerfed. And boy, did he get nerfed. First, a big health nerf to Larry and Lori. Second, a big decrease in the supercharge rate and the recharge rate. Third, the protect star power was getting utterly annihilated from 100% to 30% damage reduction, and would no longer trigger for spawnable hits. These might be some of the biggest nerfs in history, an utter destruction of Larry's stats across the board. And it wasn't nearly enough. They were still by far the best brawlers in the game, though they were a little bit more manageable now, but still really good. So, guess what? More nerfs. This time, a big attack damage nerf, and a range nerf. Both very important stats to Larry, so certainly, this time he would be balanced. Right? Wrong. Even if Larry wasn't as broken anymore, Lori still was, and they required a third set of nerfs. Yes, a third set of huge nerfs. Larry's unload speed was nerfed this time, and Lori's damage was cooked. His supercharge race was cooked, and the fallback gadget finally got a big nerf. At this point, the reign of terror was finally over. Well, sort of. Most players moved on at this point, but even now, after nerf, the twins were still by far the best thrower in the game, and a comfortable high A and even S tier brawler. But why? Well, it has to do with their very design. By definition, a thrower is broken. They are the only class that can throw over walls, so therefore, they must be balanced for this ability. And they're balanced by this for having low health and being quite horrid at short range. They prefer fighting at a long range, and certainly don't have anything to increase their health, like a spawnable to help them at a close range. Well, Larry's the exact opposite. He challenges the stereotypical definition of a thrower, having a spawnable and even preferring to fight at a shorter range. Add to this a very all-rounded kit with decent damage, decent range, and you get a thrower that literally cannot fall off. And that's exactly what happened for a long time. He genuinely was really solid, and a staple A tier brawler for months after, keeping his title as the best thrower in the game for a long time. He challenges the stereotypical definition of a thrower, having a spawnable and even preferring to fight at a shorter range. Add to this a very all-rounded kit with decent damage, decent range, and you get a thrower that literally can't fall off. And that's exactly what happened for a long time. He genuinely was really solid and a staple A tier brawler for months after, keeping his title as the best thrower in the game for a very long time. However, as they say, all things come to an end, and ironically, the Power Creeper Supreme got power crept himself. Who else but everyone's favorite brawler, Juju, could have caused this? Juju is basically a superior version of Larry in every way. She has more health, her damage was much more consistent, and she has an easier attack to hit, she has more versatility, and she has more abilities like the slow in the water and a 9-tile range when she was in a bush. Even worse, her super was even better than Larry's, having much more damage and health, and even a slow with her star power. Overall, everything that made Larry special was suddenly gone, as Juju had it all, and did it even better. Larry wasn't horrible, sure, but with a health nerf, it was clear his dominance was coming to an end, though he was still the second best thrower. Overall, these two really screwed over the thrower class and raised it to a bar the others can't possibly compete with. Having to be good at a short range is now basically a necessity for a new thrower, which will end up power creeping old throwers, so yeah, maybe this is a potential topic for a thrower problem video in the future. Anyways, let's talk about his unlockables. We already talked about his swap gadget, but surprisingly, he does have another gadget. Larry's second gadget is an absolute crime. But anyway, it's basically him and Lori swapping attacks. To say this would be bad is an understatement, but at least once upon a time it was okay. I already talked about Order Protect, so let's talk about Protocol Assist. This star power sees Larry passively reload 30% of his ammo whenever Lori is in range and damages enemies. This is an okay star power as it helps Larry with one of his biggest weaknesses, which is his reload speed, though it's unfortunately quite situational, and so not as good as his other star power. Finally, his Hypercharge. Larry's Hypercharge sees him spawn an extra Lori with 2000 extra health. At first glance it seems quite broken, and if you can get it off, it's indeed a game changer. But the problem is getting it off. In a regular game, you may not even get close to charging it up, and it would take either a generational performance or a very long game to actually get one. Contrast this with Juju's boring Hypercharge, but one that charges quite fast in comparison, and you can see why even with his Hyper, Larry can't get the title of the top thrower. Overall, Larry has some insane lore. On release, he was a top 5 brawler of all time, and you couldn't escape them. This, of course, led to some of the biggest nerfs we've seen all time, but guess what? It wasn't nearly enough. It took genuine months for him to finally lose his spot as the best thrower, and fittingly enough, it was because of power creep. But as always, thanks for watching, watch this video, or this playlist, or join the Discord server.